Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. Gabby is here from Deeto, and we have several people that have messaged and asked to get a recording. But I'm going to let Gabby go ahead and kick off, and I'm assuming more people will be rolling in very soon.
Great. Sounds good. Thanks, Mary. As hopefully some of you know, we're a new sponsor for CMA Weekly. So Mary, thanks again for this opportunity. We love what you're doing and the whole community, and just amazing to be a part of it. For those, I definitely see some familiar faces here and names. But for those who don't know me, I'm Gabi. I'm the director of business development at Deeto. Joined Deeto as employee number two about like 3 years ago. So been able to just see the company grow and see the space grow together with Deeto. And yeah, nice to meet everyone here. The goal for today is going to be to talk a little bit about how do we like equip and operationalize customer proof for your sales team. So I'd say one reason you should listen to me is because I'm a sales rep myself. So started as an SDR, have been in an AE role, now leading the SDR team. So just like how does customer marketing make it easier for your sales team to actually leverage customer stories, customer proof? I think today in our world with AI, with so much information, it becomes like even more important what we're doing and how do we really share with our prospects, like how would we help someone similar to them? What are their results? What are their stories? So it just becomes more and more important. And we're just going to talk today about how do we make it easier for them. Yeah, I'm gonna have a deck, but definitely happy to like answer questions as they come in. So don't be afraid to ask me. I'm happy to answer and just kind of keep this conversational. And at the end, I'll also just show you a little bit about Deeto and how do we help solve some of these things and just make it very, very easy. But don't worry, we'll also talk about how do you do it without a tool like Deeto. I don't think every company needs a tool, and we'll just talk about like other ways that you could be doing this. But happy to also hear what you're doing and how you've been managing some of these processes. Seems like it's more joining in, but maybe I'll start off, share my screen. Hopefully you all could see my screen. So again,
We can.
what we're gonna be talking today is about operationalizing customer proof for sales. I'm going to start with a little bit of a background. I think you all are pretty aware, but I think just even helps us understand a little bit more why this is important. But what we're seeing is that the buyer journey is changing. 70% of the journey is now self-guided. So when a prospect even comes to your website and books a demo, they already have a lot of information about your company. And they want to hear more from your real customers. They already have a lot of information. They maybe even saw like a demo. They might have already read about you in some article or on LinkedIn. They want to really hear what your customers say about you. And this is true to all the stakeholders. There's multiple stakeholders probably evaluating your business, your company, and each one has different needs, and each one wants to hear how someone like them has been using your solution. If it's IT, they want to hear from IT. If it's sales, they want to hear from sales. If it's the person doing the integration, they want to hear about the person doing the integration, how they've used it. So it just becomes more complicated and more important to get that social proof. So I think like the problem that we're seeing is most companies, they have some testimonials, they have some insights, but there needs to be a better way to really give their sales team and to give the general team access to these pieces of content, to give the right prospect the right content at the right time. So hopefully you all could agree with that. So I think marketing is creating this content. You're creating these testimonials, your case studies, but the buyers themselves, they want more, again, personalized, role specific, industry relevant insights, and they want it at the right time. So the question is, how do we make that easy for sales to really leverage those pieces of content at the right time and give them like the tools that they need to succeed? I think sales today, a lot of times they just don't have easy access to the pieces of content, or they don't know how to use it. They don't know where to find it. They don't have specific case studies. Maybe there's like a general case study, but they don't have a very industry specific, role specific, problem specific case study that they could share. I'm going to stop here just for maybe would love to hear from you. And please don't be shy. Like what challenges would you say you face when trying to equip your sales team with like the right customer proof and success stories that they need? Would love to hear from you. Maybe I'll even stop sharing for a second to see if there's anything in the chat. But would love to hear from you.
I'm Rose and I work at Sentinel One. We're a cybersecurity company. And two things I think that I find. One, sales isn't necessarily super incentivized. Like they want to get a spiff or something to help us get customer proof points. So that can be very challenging just in the beginning to actually get that information. But then once we have it, we're having trouble figuring out and currently trying to work out like how to get that information to the sales rep in like an efficient way. Like if we can have one repository place, but if it's quotes, like how do you present those quotes to the sales reps? Um, it's just like all of that has been very challenging. I mean, I'm getting like requests all the time for quotes or for case studies or something, and I would love a way for them to just self-serve that information in an easy way.
So basically, all on the one hand, like just collecting the content and getting like sales team involved and having like an incentive for them to even go and reach out to a customer. And then also like once you have that content, how do you have it in one place that they could access and self-serve?
Yeah.
Cool,
And I
thanks.
think I would like to add to that too. Um, I think the challenge for me are the things that Rose has just mentioned, but also how do you get sellers to remember when there is a place where they could go, a single repository? How do you get them to remember, 3 months, 6 months down the line that there are references available? There is customer story content, testimonials available. Um, I think, and you said yourself you're a seller, so you know how busy our
Yeah.
sales colleagues are, right? So I think they forget from 1 minute to the next that, oh, I do have references I could share. I don't have to rely on my own pool of customers. There are other customers out there, that sort of thing. So
And
kind of to build on what Rose said.
yeah, I know. I hear that. I hear that a lot. But Donna, does your sales team like reach out to you for like case studies or specific case studies? Like, hey, can you share this case study we
So
do have?
I'm currently looking for my next role, but I come
Oh,
from Cisco,
yeah.
which has an enormous pool of sellers, right? And there are some that might reach out or know where to go for customer stories, but then there are others who it feels like no matter how many times you say, they don't remember that there is this whole repository of thousands of customer stories that they could
Yeah.
use to source.
Yeah, I'd say I think just one thing for that is just, if it's easy for the sales rep, they probably will remember it exists. If it's difficult, they're going to probably be lazy and and they'll forget it exists. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
if there's an
Yeah.
easy way for them to find the content and if it's like in a very organized spreadsheet that they could just go and find, and every time they even ask you for a piece of content, you just send them the spreadsheet and remind them. They probably will use it. But if it's like super complicated, they have to go and ask and find, and it takes hours until they find the right thing. So sales reps won't use that
Yeah.
honestly.
Exactly. Right.
I
Um,
have, oh, sorry. I have a couple things as well that I'm seeing as issues. So I was going to share that. I didn't mean to
yeah,
cut anybody off though.
no, go for it, Mary.
Donna, did you have more?
No, no, that's great. Go ahead, Mary. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see something very similar, like across the companies that I talk to, is, it sounds like I don't want to take the time to go look for these things. Do you have something that is top of mind? Because one, I see that there are a lot of not great practices as far as like how we are getting new content to the sales team. Um, a company that I've worked with, they do like a monthly call where all the salespeople can join and see all the new content. But I'm like, that seems really inefficient because it's an hour long call. They can join it each month, but that's an hour long. That is a long time, I think, for a salesperson to say, I'm going to jump into this to see what 5 or 6 stories I can take away from it and if they might apply. So what I'm also seeing is, and this might even apply to like Maria Sturgeon, I think she's at Stripe. It probably applies to Cisco too, is there's so much content that sales can use. And it's so difficult to really nail down, even in a spreadsheet. What can I use? What do I want to use? And like tagging gets out of control. It's just hard to find the very specific things they need when there's so much content and getting it all into one place. So, like, I know the company I'm with, we have like 3 different tools the sales team can use that have that say that has all the content. And it's like, how are they? There's just so much to do in these processes. And I guess I'm hoping like AI helps at some point.
Mary,
Hey, I'll chime in, Mary, since you called me out. It's
Sorry,
Maria with
sorry.
Stripe. Um, no, it's okay. So I would say we do a very good job of tracking our content. Like I have a team and they've focused on, case studies too, and really good capturing and search functionality and everything. But the challenge I face a lot is I feel like every deal I work with salespeople on, it's almost very customized and very curated. And it's like we might have a past story on there, and it might refer to like a user using a certain product, but they might not currently be a reference for it. So it's just like matching those up, like if they need to do a call right now, or be listed in RFP, you need to be absolutely sure those are 100% like there's no issues with products or anything. So it's just matching those two. And it's like just a constant challenge to keep our references updated and the profiles within our reference database and match up to that spreadsheet. I hear back and forth all the time, like, well, do people pull, case studies down if the case study is outdated and et cetera? And I think the answer is it depends. Like, it just depends on how outdated the story is. I mean, if it's a big brand name, you don't want to pull it down. You can't certainly, even though we always have a plan to try to update case studies, you can't update everything. So I work hand in hand with a lot of our team members, just to kind of like personalize it with our sales force if they're looking for a reference. But it's sometimes challenging and time consuming.
and Maria, right now, does the sales team have a way to access like the references might be a little bit harder, but like the content itself, do they have a
Sorry,
way
I didn't
to?
realize my video wasn't on.
No
Sure.
worries.
I mean, all different ways. Like they have an access to all of our stories, are put on our high spot page. It's also like one of my coworkers does a fabulous job of just keeping everything in a really neat and tidy Google Sheets to keep track of everything and like keyword searches, the users, the titles, products. Like she does a fabulous job, and that's like one of my go-to resources as well. Um, and we just did kind of a revamp of customer stories on stripe.com. I manage the CRP database within Salesforce, which we use kind of Reference Edge for that. And so it's constantly just, with over 800 contacts, you have to constantly update those profiles. So it's just making sure, like I tell people when they nominate a new contact, I don't care what the user purchased. I mean, I care, but I don't like for this database purposes, I only care what they'll speak to, and they'll speak to possibly as a reference. So let's just say they purchased the product, but they're not yet using it. It's not live. Then don't check it on the profile. But then we need to make sure we have a way of updating that when when it is alive. So we can search on it easily, return results, and then match that reference request, like within 1 to 2 days versus 1 to 2 weeks. So that's like the ideal case.
Got it. Thanks. That makes sense. It kind of just gets me think that, the end we're dealing with customers and they're always the way they think, their thoughts, their that's the way they think about your company. It always changes. So it's hard, right? That's like part of the struggle is just having like a living, breathing database of content and sentiment
Yeah.
because it just always changes. So like how do companies make it that it's just like a living, breathing thing
Yeah.
that's always updated? It's an interesting question.
And I think for all of us too, like I I suffer from like being a perfectionist. So like I want to get on that reference as soon as possible, be able to find those results for the salesperson and
Right.
most importantly the user. And if I can't do that, it really frustrates me. So I'm always trying to figure out how can we fix that. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It takes more, challenges. It just depends. So
Thanks, Maria, and for everyone in the chat. I think overall, like, definitely heard a few of the same answers. Getting approvals, being able to create like one database of customer stories for the sales team, so that they know where to find it when there's a customer story. So thanks everyone. I'm going to go back to my deck. Hopefully you don't hate my deck. But essentially what I believe is to be true is that customer marketing is kind of the missing link and needs to be the kind of the link between sales and all these testimonials. I mean, I think we all understand how important it is for them to have the right testimonials, social proof, customer proof that they could be using, but just how do we make it very easy for them to use? How do we enable them in the right way? That's what we're going to talk about in the remainder here of the call. So what I want to talk about is like what I think good looks like, and happy to also hear from you soon what you think good looks like. But I'd say there's a few things that come to mind at Deeto that we think is important. So one is like having proof tagged by persona, by industry, by product. In general, just having like one database of customer content, I think is really important. Me as a sales rep, like I was on a call literally right before this one, and a company the prospect asked me for a case study from someone that also sells to restaurants. So that's kind of vague. I'm gonna have to go and try to find that. Without like one customer library, that could be hard to do. But if you're able to really tag your content by persona, industry, product, problem that the content's talking about, it makes it a lot easier for the sales rep. If they're able to filter and actually like not only tag it, but also go and filter and be able to find those pieces of content, makes it easier. And then also I would say like having sales friendly formats. If me as a sales rep, I might not want to send like a really lengthy sale case study that I think the prospect might not necessarily read. Like if it's in the top of funnel to after a first call, I might just want like a short quote that I could put into my follow-up email or something that's just a little bit easier to consume. So I'd say like also having just sales friendly formats is very important. And this talking from like my own experience, SDRs as well, they might not want to send like a full case study to a prospect because they have no idea who that SDR is. And maybe just like a short quote or some logos that they could use in the email will really just change like how effective that like cold email is. One more thing is I think it makes it a lot better if you're able to somehow have it in like your CRM or in your sales tool or sales enablement tool. Like probably some of sales reps could be lazy. And I think if you have it in a place where they live anyways, Salesforce, HubSpot, HighSpot, one of their sales tools just makes it easier for them. And there's a higher chance that they'll actually leverage the contents that we're working very hard on creating. One more thing here that I'd say is helpful is having ready to use email and templates and what we call microsites that sales people could use. So for an SDR, maybe an email template they could already use in their outbound where they say like, hey, here are some logos that we're helping. These have been their results. Just like an actual email that they could use. I think this is something that sometimes customer marketing could do a better job in and is enabling sales teams with email templates. Same also could be with AEs. I finished my first discovery call 30 minutes ago. I want to already have like an email, a template that I could share with them. Hey, great speaking with you. Here are some case studies or some proof points from some customers similar to you. If I already had those email templates handy, like that'd be super helpful. And also things like microsites and more what we call like proof packs. So if someone from a specific industry wants to understand how I've been helping them, I want to already have like a microsite, a landing page, something that I could share, not just with like one case study, but maybe a case study, a video testimonial, some quotes, some proof points, additional information, a demo, something that's more in depth that I could already share, that's just already ready, copy paste and share that. So I think that's also just something that could be really helpful. And maybe I'll just stop here again and would love to hear from you if there's anything that you think could be helpful, that you found to be helpful for your sales team, or that you hope you could do to help your sales team. Would love to hear any thoughts about what you think good looks like. Or if you disagree with what I said, happy to also hear some thoughts as well.
Hi, this is Karen. I've got a couple of things that I've experienced as of late. Um, Slack channel is huge for LastPass. And so there's so many Slack channels, but that's where our sales reps and our CSM team and the likes are going. And I would drop a lot of stuff into there and it would just an easy pull. But everything that you've shared is all things that I've actually done and been successful with, and I'm sure most people on this call probably feel the same.
Thanks, Karen. I think Slack is, if your sales team's there anyways, so having content ready to use in Slack is super helpful.
Yeah, I've always liked to use like short links or like keyboard, um, what are those? Like shortcuts so I can easily remember and share links and things. We haven't done the like landing pages before, but I think that could be a really good idea. Um, we like don't have necessarily that capability or like an easy way to do it, but I think that being able to give sales like already put together with like a bunch of like use cases or custom like voice of a customer um pieces of content like already there in a nice way like that seems I think that's something that you guys do and I hadn't seen that before but I'm also somewhat new to the field but I really was think that's like a huge lift for a salesperson so if we as advocacy can give that to them I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, just like an example for that, Rose, I agree. There's like, for instance, we get asked a lot, how are we different than some of our competitors? So we already have internally, these landing pages with also information about the differences, but also testimonials from customers that have either used both tools or have evaluated both tools. So it's just already ready to use when a sales rep gets asked, like, hey, how are you different from X competitor? Boom, they have that just like a landing page that they could share. They don't have to go and create like a whole deck from scratch. And it's really focused on like their customers, their testimonials, their proof points, the results. So that's like really what we focus that landing page on. Cool. Thanks for sharing. A couple more things that I want to just share on like what I think good looks like. Might be new to some of you, might be old to some of you, but we'll just kind of quickly walk through this. I think having, like I mentioned, like a customer proof library is really beneficial. Being able to just for a customer or a sales rep, sorry, to go into a spreadsheet, find, put filter by company size, or if they have consents to share it, or the industry, or, any other filter that you could add is really helpful just with like a link to the asset. One thing that I've seen also companies do is just like add like a short quote as well from that asset that they could use, like maybe some top quotes. Again, might be helpful for a sales rep when they don't want to share a full case study because, again, I think top of funnel people might not really have the patience to read a full case study, but maybe just to kind of quickly read a quote, a highlight, I think is very helpful. So having a customer proof library, I think is super, super beneficial. And we'll definitely share later, like what that would look like in Deeto, but even something in like a spreadsheet, an Asana, Airtable. I think I've seen some like really good examples of companies using these tools to help like enable their sales team. A couple of use cases where I think like, we need to think about how do we enable our sales team with these testimonials. So there's a few examples. I won't read through all of them, but like, how do we give our SDR team cold emails that they could use with prospects, and already give them like templates that they could leverage with some logos and customer proof? How do we give our AEs actual access to like templates for follow-up emails or follow-up like templates that they could use to share like a case study? How do we give them like the tools that they need to object, like for objection handling? So a lot of times, like I'll, get questions about something. There's some objections that I hear. How do I already have, and how can I go filter and find the relevant proof points for those objections? If someone's worried about the integration to a CRM, how can I go and show them easily and find relevant content from customers who've already done that integration? So I think it's worth like thinking about use cases, thinking about the funnel, thinking about where we are in the funnel. Is it top of funnel, mid funnel, bottom? What are some of the problems that the sales team is going through that we could really help and enable them to leverage customer proof? Again, if it's top of funnel, how do we give them easy access to like email templates? If it's really like bottom of the funnel, how do we give them like access to references? I think it's worth thinking about and kind of thinking about the funnel and how we could be helping the sales team. Just looking here in the chat. Cool. Some just examples of like templates that I've seen. These are just some examples. Could also share this later, but this is an example of like an SDR email template that I think customer marketing could help with. Essentially like giving them like some sort of email that they could use where they would just have to change and like put in, you just put in your customer's name, and what was actually like the result that you gave them. So this is like, I think, a great email that an SDR could share. Just wanted to quickly share how the name of the company doubled their pipeline. So like adding the result using your product. There's 10 other fintech leaders that are using our solution to really solve that pain point. So this is just like an example of what like a good email template an SDR could use, and how you could just like maybe even just add the case study there. If you're able to enable your sales team, your SDR managers to leverage these types of emails, I think it would make a big impact. Same goes also for an AE follow-up. So how do we give them, just like I mentioned, just like a short email that they could add to their follow-up? A lot of times, like I will honestly be ghosted by prospects. So how do I also have like an email that I could go and share and remind them like, hey, it's been a while since I heard back. Thought I'd just, reach out with some case studies or a proof point or something that I want to add. If I had like these templates that I could use in my previous roles as an AE, it would have made my life a lot easier if I just had this go copy paste, bump it up, and I'm sure I could probably save a couple deals a year with these types of templates. Unfortunately, a lot of times prospects will ghost us, and I think if we're able to reach out to them with the right proof points, the right stories, just like an interesting follow-up email, that's not just like, hey, buy for me, but hey, here's how a customer is using our tool. I think that's very valuable. Cool. I want to present Deeto to you. So I think everything we talked about has to do with how do we get your sales team to leverage the right insights, the right testimonials, the right proof points at the right time. And just want to share how we're solving this at Deeto. I'll be honest, I don't think all companies need a tool like Deeto, but I do think it makes your life a lot easier, especially if you have, a lot of customers and sales reps who could really leverage these testimonials and case studies. So Deeto, essentially, it's like we're an AI-powered customer insights platform. So essentially a few engines that are running in Deeto. First engine is the actual collection of the customer contents, the customer stories, the customer proof points, making it just really easy to capture that customer content. Really everything from text to videos to feedback to surveys, everything could be managed within Deeto on the collection side. able to also manage everything in one place. So like we kind of discussed, how do we build like one library of all your customer content that's searchable, that's filterable, that your sales team could just go in and find, that you could also go in and find. So we make it really easy, just tag, the pieces of content. You could upload content as well. So not just Deeto generated content, and just have everything live in one place. And the third aspect of Deeto is also the sharing. So how do we make it really easy for sales rep to self-serve either from Deeto or from the CRM integration and go and find the relevant content? And I think this is really important because like I said, sales reps could be lazy. And if you make it very easy for them, I know we mentioned Slack, Karen mentioned Slack. We also mentioned Salesforce integration. If we make it very easy for them to leverage the content, there's just a higher chance that they would actually use it and leverage it and make an impact. So that's the third engine that we manage in Deeto, is like the sharing of customer stories, customer references, and manage also like a full reference process. Kind of went through this quickly, but like I said, collecting, managing, sharing. So won't go through this, but really the idea is across the full sales cycle. And I think this is something in general that's worth thinking about. Like I mentioned, is, how do we share in the top of funnel, easy quotes, and how do we create those quotes as well and those stories in the middle of the funnel? How do we create these like micro sites that are easy to share with, the testimonials, case studies, proof points, something that's a little bit more in depth that we could share with our prospects. And at the bottom of the funnel, how do we make it easy for the sales rep to connect the prospect with the reference, schedule the reference call aspect, and at the end of the day, close deals and get, insights into how you're actually helping close deals, what the revenue is that you're bringing in, how are you impacting ROI. So this is really what we're really focused on, is how do we impact all stages of the funnel, and enable like, your sales team with the right content, the right references at the right time. While I stop sharing and just bring up, just would love to give you a short demo and kind of walk you through some of this. Any questions or thoughts so far? Happy to kind of stop here for a second.
Does Deeto include the templates for like that microsite little example you just showed, or is that something that would be created off the platform and then integrated later?
So that's it's created in Deeto. So you're able to create these microsites, and I'll show you soon like how that's done. Essentially, in a couple minutes, you create one. Like you decide which references you want added, which content. You could also upload content as well. Like maybe there's like a good attachment that you want added that you have created previously, or there's another good video testimonial that was created previously. You could upload all that to content and add it to the microsites.
Great, thank you.
Great. So hopefully you're all still with me here. But what I want to show you is a little bit how your sales team will be able to leverage the content and the testimonials. I will just start by giving a quick, just like kind of overview of this knowledge hub. So this would be like your overview of your customer proof library. So this is where you have this living, breathing machine where you're able to create customer content and have everything stored here within Deeto. So if you're ever looking for, let's say, a review or a user story or a video testimonial, essentially you just click here and find all the video testimonials that you have from your users. If you want to go like deeper into like an industry or persona or any other tag that you have, you're able to go add those tags and find those customers. We also use AI, so you could ask like any question essentially, or just some sort of keyword. So if you're looking for any content about onboarding, you'd be able to click that and find all the customers who talk about onboarding in their content. So it just becomes this like living, breathing customer proof library that you could use. You could also upload content as well. So you could import any contents, links, videos, PDFs of content that you've created elsewhere, and just gives you this one tool to store all of your customer proof, stories, results, et cetera, et cetera.
Quick question about the searching. Is that done because it's with AI? You don't need to do any tagging or anything?
You need to tag the contents. like for instance, if you want to tag, customers based on like their title or their industry, but the content
So
itself,
like keywords.
content, the keywords, you don't have to like, it's just because we're looking at the actual content. Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna quickly show you before I jump into the sales team and how they would use it, just what it would look like to actually create content in Deeto. So like I mentioned, the first engine is really being able to capture customer stories, and you'd be able to like design an onboarding process where customers could join and create content for you. So this is one with our branding, but imagine this being like with your branding and your logo, and the customer would be able to go through this process of creating a quote, a review, a Q&A, basically like answer some questions, sign up for different activities, create a case study, create a video testimonial. You could have this all as part of the process. And just to give you a little sneak peek, essentially like Amber was first gave us like a short quotes, and then using this quote and the characteristic that she created, we then are able with AI to turn this into like a larger review. So this is just like an example of how we speed up that process. We take a quote, we turn it into a larger review and get approval and consent from the customer to leverage this. I won't go through this full process, but we're also able to create user stories and case studies and have the customer sign up for different activities and reward them for each step of the way. So you could also use our reward system as well. So just kind of to quickly sum up where we are, you create the content, you create the customer library, everything lives here within Deeto. And do want to get back on track to like really share how the sales team now could leverage how they could leverage Deeto. So the ideas within Deeto, we could create what we call these personal microsites, and essentially it's really based off of your customer content and customer stories. And you could create this for your team, or your team could also create that for themselves. So for instance, we have customers that every time a call scheduled between a prospect and a sales rep, automatically through our CRM integration, we send them a microsite, or our customers will send their prospects a microsite with customer testimonials. So that's like an example of an automation where you could use those microsites. Or you could create microsites that will explain why you're better than one of your competitors. Or you could have multiple microsites, each one explaining what advantages you have over a competitor. So these here, all these boxes are just like examples of microsites. You could have a microsite for a specific industry, for a specific persona, for a specific title, and then have the relevant content in that microsite. So the way it would work is you would create like a new microsite. You would give it a name. Let's say you're doing one for, I mentioned this before, like restaurant. Maybe you want to have all your restaurant customers. You would select who the owner is. So maybe I'm the owner of this, and you'd have like a call to action. So maybe like book a demo or contact us or schedule a reference call. Depends what CTA you want. You'd be able to add like a title to this. You'd be able to have like a message that's going to be part of this microsite. But essentially what you would do is we would find the most relevant references for you to add to that microsite. And you could then go and filter it by campaigns or by industry, by persona, size of company, and you would select the different references you want and could select their contributions. I won't go into this all now, but you have all of their content here in Deeto, where you could go and find it from Deeto. And from here, what Deeto will actually do is also allow you to upload any other attachment. So these are attachments of content that were created outside of Deeto, and it's up to you. You could go and select them and add them to your microsite. So you could really upload any piece of content, Deeto related or content that wasn't created in Deeto, and add that to your microsite. And that's pretty much it. You could also come up with like an email. So if your sales team is sending this to a prospect, you could already give them that email template and have that ready. So once they just use the microsite, it comes out with that template and a link to that microsite. And I'll show you soon what that microsite looks like. But literally, this should take a couple minutes, and you're already using the content that was created in Deeto or content that was created elsewhere and adding that to a microsite. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. I know I'm talking a lot, and happy to answer and hear from you guys as well.
What are some of your customers' favorite features?
Features in general.
Yeah.
Um, well, I mean, I think if we're just talking in general about Deeto, is I think an advantage is it's one platform for a lot of customer marketing needs. So if it's customer like creating content, if it's having a library of content, if it's managing a reference program, if it's like managing an advocacy program, if it's being able to reward customers or have a referral program, you have all of these capabilities like built in, so you don't have to have multiple tools. I think that's like one of the main advantages. You could start off small, you could start off just with customer content and just kind of grow and use other capabilities, but it does have like most of the capabilities that one company will need at some point.
Nice. Yeah, I like the idea of the microsites, especially the automation to include things and have it kind of creating those for the sales calls.
Yeah, and just kind of give you an example of what that would look like. Um, Essentially, this is an example of what a microsite would look like. It would come from the sales rep. So here's my information. So it's personalized. And essentially, what this would look like is a prospect would be able to go right and left here between the different customers and read their content, see their quotes, go into the case study, go into a video testimonial if there's a video testimonial, and then depending on the CTA, they'd be able to get in touch or book a reference call. But this is an example of like a microsite. So again, you might have a microsite about one specific industry and then have all your customers for that industry with like attachments with their testimonials. But this is an example of a microsite that you could create. And a sales rep could share this in multiple ways. They could go in and just copy a link. So again, we're trying to make it easy for them. They could also embed it in an email sequence. So if you want to have this like in a sequence for them in Outreach or Apollo, SalesLoft, or any of the sales engagement tools that you're using, you could just actually have them leverage that and send it in one of those sales engagement tools. So we really recommend, again, without Deeto, having these microsites that are just ready to share, ready to use, and makes it easier for sales reps.
What about sales adoption? I know a big area that people in our as advocacy managers and such have trouble with is getting the sales teams to adopt new tools like this. Is how does that play into it? What have you seen working to get those sales teams more engaged and involved?
Yeah, good question. I mean, sales adoption is always interesting. Um, First of all, I mean, I think the easier it is for them, there's just going to be a better adoption. Um, Usually, what we're seeing is that there has to be some sort of relationship between customer marketing and the sales leaders. Like if the sales leader isn't enforcing some of this, I think it gets a lot harder. If the sales leader is enforcing and kind of recommending and showing best practices around how do we use references, how do we use contents, where do we use these microsites, that becomes a lot easier when you have their blessing. Um, so we like internally with our customers, we'll do a lot of training with the sales leaders and with the sales reps themselves, and just explaining again, how do they use these different tools? How do they find the right reference? When's the right time to send a case study? When's the right time to send a quote? When's the right time to connect a prospect with a live reference for a call? So just think there's a lot of like enablement and training involved, and again, like just getting the approval and kind of the having a good relationship with the sales managers. Um, and in general, I guess going back, I mentioned this a few times, just having the sales rep know that there's a place with that they could really just go and access everything. Just having one place for everything makes it a lot easier and increases adoption.
That's interesting. Thank you. I don't know, but I haven't heard of other companies like taking the time to help enable the sales team with doing trainings and such. But it could just be that I don't know. Bye,
Are
Kim. Thank
you
you for coming.
Yeah, are you referring, Mary, to vendors or to just companies like trying like customer marketing trying to enable their sales team?
Yeah, more like the vendors themselves, like you taking the time to speak to the sales teams. Um, like I know that customer marketers, I know a lot of them really try to get on calls and things like that. So I having a vendor that will allow like the sales team to get on and ask questions, I bet that could be really interesting because it kind of cuts out the middleman to a point.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end for a successful program, it's not just about having a tool. It's not just about having the right testimonials. There's so many things involved that have to be working. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's about having the right tools and having the right processes and having the sales team trains. And if I could just speak kind of openly, like I think that's what we do good at Deeto, is just like really helping with like a lot of those aspects. But again, I don't think it has to be like a tool. It could just be making sure you have the right customer library, the right processes for your sales team, the right connections and relationships there. So a lot of other things that could be done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
There was just one more thing I was hoping to show you today, and then we could just kind of open it up for last minute questions. But this is just like what an example of what it would look like within your CRM. So we'll use Salesforce as an example here. So Deeto integrates with Salesforce and with HubSpot and essentially lives here within this Deeto tab under the opportunity. So what we give the sales rep the ability to do is to match the prospect with the most relevant reference. So a prospect could actually go and find, okay, I'm selling to Robert, the CMO. I could click invite prospect. And Deeto will match that prospect with the most similar references based on their profile, their pain points, their industry, anything else that you like would also add as an important feature or important field. And then we'll offer 3 different references for that prospect. So the sales rep could go and say, like, hey, these 3 references look great. They could also go and see all the other references and click here to see all the other references and use Deeto as well to see the content that they have. So if I want to see all of Lee's content, I'd click here. I'd be able to go in and see his review, his Q&A, his quote. So everything lives here right inside Deeto. And I could also decide if I'm actually offering a reference call for the prospect. So essentially here I could turn on or off this button. And if this is on, Deeto will actually even help schedule the reference calls and track what's happening with the reference call and send out a calendar invite once the reference call is scheduled. So literally in a minute, we're trying to make it that the sales rep has this like very easy way to go into a Deeto tab, find the prospect, match them with references, find the contents. And I think this process in like 2 minutes, you should be able to select your references, see again who's available. So we make sure we're not overusing the references. And then from here, just send out an email. We have a template. You could change the template here, but this is then an email sent out to the prospect with those relevant references that they could just go and schedule a call with. So I think again, the key here is just making it very simple for the sales rep, and seeing how you could give them the right references, the right content in the shortest amount of time.
And is this native to Salesforce?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions? You can message me directly in here if you'd rather have me ask a question, and I can answer, or I can have Gabby answer. Um, or
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So Gabby, you showed toward the beginning of your demo where the customer reference is filling out, the information, they're answering questions and all of that kind of thing. And I apologize because someone else was making the point earlier about revalidation, but how often does the tool, you set a timeline to go back to customers to make sure this is all still accurate? You still use XYZ product, you're still a happy customer. How does that kind of process work within Deeto?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, is up to you. You could run campaigns and we could help like automate campaigns where, let's say, every 6 months, as an example, you reach out to a customer, seeing if they want to update their content or create additional contents. So that's one thing that you could do and just automatically set up in Deeto. Another thing is that when you reach out to a customer for content the first time, that doesn't mean that it ends there. You could keep reaching out to customers for more feedback, for more content. Let's say you release a new feature and you want to get, their sentiment on that or a testimonial on that. You could reach out to customers. So the goal with Deeto is to have this like one living, breathing knowledge hub, we call it, of customer insights. So the goal is to have it like that you're always getting more customer content, more testimonials. And we do actually track like customer overall sentiment based on their content. So we will also give like a score. If a customer yesterday fills out a testimonial that wasn't great, that will change their score. So you're able to also look at that. Hopefully that answers your question, but I will also say one more thing. We could also make sure that, based on health score, if it's also from like your customer success platform, that we don't match a prospect with a reference that their, health score is low. So that's something that we do as well, just to make sure that when you're connecting, let's say, a prospect with a reference for a live call, that you're not leveraging someone that's might not be happy at the moment.
Great, thank you.
A question kind of based off of that. So the like pool of content that we're getting from one customer, is that linked back into Salesforce as well, like to their contact page, where like a
Yes.
sales rep could go to the specific contact and say, what's all the content they've ever shared with us?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And what's the customer experience like on the rewards system? How do they know how many points they have and redeem
So I
them?
think what's nice and might be special about Deeto is that we have a few interfaces. So you have like your interface where you manage your program. You have a prospect interface where they could see like the microsites and schedule reference calls and see the content. And then the reference also has their interface where they could go and create more content. They could submit referrals. They could do many different things, including being able to redeem rewards. So for each activity, you could set up different rewards. So let's say, you want to set up a reward for just joining Deeto or for completing a review or a reference call. Your customers would start getting rewards and they'd be able to redeem those as gift cards, as donations. And we could also add like any other more customized gift. Maybe it's like a book or a ticket to some sort of event. So you could say, 500 points is a ticket to our yearly event, or 200 points is a sweatshirt. So we could also do that as well, but we fulfill the gift cards and the donations out of the box.
So you're not like connected to like Sendoso. It's its own form
We have
within Deeto. Okay.
Own solution.
Hey, Gabby.
Hey, Erwin. Good to see you. Good to see you again.
Yeah, would somebody have Deeto and Influitive, Slap5, etc., or no, you'd have one or the other?
I'd say probably one or the other. I
Okay.
don't think I have any examples of companies like using both. I think the only reason you might want to use like an Influitive and a Deeto is if you're also looking for like a community and you're like actually looking for customers to talk to each other. But besides that, I think we cover like all the other functionalities.
Okay, great.
That was great. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Erwin and Gabby and Story. Does anybody else have any questions they want to ask?
I asked it in the chat, but how customizable is Deeto on the back end for a customer marketing admin? Can we change the fields, things like that? Change the flow?
So this was something that we put a lot of effort into, I'd say, in the last like 6 months. So today you could change all the fields, the branding, the colors, the flow of what your customer goes through. Maybe you only want to get a quote and a review. You could do that. It's really customizable. There's essentially like a full admin side to Deeto where you could go and control all of that. Again, colors, branding, the email templates, the questions that you're asking your customers, the gifting. I'd say there's not a lot that's not customizable. It's almost
Awesome. Thank you.
all, yeah. By the way, I will say, like, because if you want to upload content as well into your like customer library, there's customer content library, you could upload content, and using AI will actually auto tag the content. So if you're uploading like 10 different case studies from before, we'll automatically tag it based on like what we find in the content. Maybe it's by the industry, again, size of the company, the title, the problem that it's talking about, the pain point. So you could upload all your previous content, and based on the tags that you've added, it'll auto tag them as well.
And how can people reach out to you if they have more questions or wanted to do a demo?
Yeah, so I'll add my email here. Happy to get any emails, answer any questions. So feel free to reach out to me over email. Also on our website, which is basically the ending of my email, so Deeto.ai. You could just go and read more about Deeto. We are redoing our website. But for now, you could go and read through the website. There's a book a demo button if you want to speak with me directly. I promise I won't bite. And
you're also in the
yeah,
community as well.
yeah, also in the community, so happy to answer any questions there. Yeah, I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. If anyone wants to connect on LinkedIn, happy to connect there as well.
Perfect. Okay, well, we'll get a recording out about this. Did anyone have any last questions they wanted to ask? We still have a couple minutes left. But we'll get the recording out, and
Yeah. I'm surprised so many people stuck around, because I know long webinars could be exhausting.
yeah, I thought it was good and lots of information. Thank you
Yeah,
all
so
for coming.
appreciate you all sticking around with me.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is great.
Thanks, Mary.
You too. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.